Dear colleagues, today we would like to present you a new study by Tatyana, Kovaleva and Vadim Karastelev on interactive questioning as the means of realizing the lifelong learning. The concept of Lev Vygotsky related to understanding of a human in the concept of his cultural practice appropriation nowadays requires extra comprehension. The quick changes increasingly need people to make their own decisions on such points as what, where and how to learn, assimilate cultural practices effectively and transform them. Accordingly, continuity has turned into one of the most important characteristics of the process of modern education. The phase of questioning has become more vital than the found answer. Setting for a constant and individual search for questions that will improve the human development is necessary in the lifelong learning. Questioning, or the process of statement of question, has become the most considerable tool in implementing the activity approach in Vygotsky's concept. In our time, the new requirements imposed by the society to the modern school force it to look for new formats of educational development. Lifelong learning can be understood in this context as one of the options for responding to different challenges, where school or university education becomes only one of the elements of contemporary people's education, along with other various social and cultural practices. In this case, the clear distinction between the basic or compulsory and co-curricular disappears, and the essential characteristic of lifelong learning turns into a conscious order of an individual for his own education and his access to his own individual educational program. By the way, one of the tendencies of modern education is education on demand. As a rule, at every moment an individual deals with more specific issues, like the choice of profile, direction in the further training, or with specific research or project work, etc. But even with regard to these specific issues, he can begin to form his own request for the learning process, which will be implemented not only in the frameworks of the school or university, but also in a wide network of different socio-cultural practices, which are now discussed as open education. There is the type of special skills and abilities that is connected with human self-determination, the ability to ask his own questions, the vision of his own priorities in a particular activity, the ability to be informed and make informed choices, and therefore forming their own individual, in particular educational program, that we make out a particular group of so-called competencies aimed at self-skills. The long-term studies show that, on the one hand, one of the most considerable conditions of self-education is the ability of a person to detect and mark the boundaries of his knowledge, using text form or scheme, and, on the other hand, it is the ability to show the direction in which he plans to expand them. The sign form in which this can be expressed is a question or a list of questions. By its logical structure, the question always fixes some existing knowledge, the basis of the question, and points to a certain aspect of the unknown, the direction of the question. The question draws a line between the known and the unknown, something comprehensible and incomprehensible, and at the same time indicates a connection between them. The form of the question makes us think about the reasons, why, about the goals and intentions, what for, about things, what, their properties, what, and etc. Consequently, the questions tame the area of unknown and allow to keep rationality and not to worry while meeting with something unfamiliar. Primarily, it is worth showing the space in which our working typology of asking questions is being built. Unlike the widespread practice, whereby professors act with the premediated questions for students, we work with those that are formulated by students themselves. This means that starting from the hierarchical space, the teacher has the primary right to formulate questions, whereas the tutor needs to move to the space with the equality for all the participants to put their own questions, and there is taking responsibility for the queries. The first type is asking, the most common one, that represents the situation when the pedagogue or a professor asks questions, the keys to which he has in advance and receives answers from students, after which he compares them with the prepared answers in the frames of the educational process. The student also asks questions known as pre-personal by their nature, because one does not need to take responsibility for questioning. In addition, questions are asked within a hierarchical system based on the professor having more rights to raise the issue and accept or reject students' questions. Interaction among students, even during team teaching, is not required in this type. The second one is active questioning, that is used mostly in problem-based learning. It is based on searching for answers to the questions asked by the professor and well known to him, by organizing group forms of communication, when students collectively search for versions of answers to the posed questions. For students, another option is to formulate their own questions, but the answers already exist. In both cases, the role of the teacher is still leading and evaluating the correctness of these answers. The third one, interactive type of questioning, is being developed and practiced by our research team. Represents that neither the teacher nor the students know the correct answer, which in general may not exist. The focus is on meaningful interaction among students. In fact, the teacher becomes the tutor who accompanies communication and searching process for the questions formulated by students. In this case, the student, unlike the former two types of questioning, accepts responsibility for the questions posed by him and acquires reflexive attitude to his thinking and activities while entering the process of continuing education. Based on the cultural historical theory of Lev Vygotsky, our group specializes in the development of interactive questioning techniques. To evaluate the results, we applied the following two tools. The first one is the observation made by the researcher, including the study of the verbatim record of the discussion and viewing the videos. The last but not the least is the participants' own assessment of themselves in the form of several series of reflective statements. Consequently, from 70 to 80% of the participants in the interactive questioning sessions noticed some improvement in their technique of asking questions and drew attention to the great energy that came during the working process. We have established the following consistent pattern. Interactive questioning increases reflexivity and significantly affects the productivity of communication and team interaction, self-organization, and access to the continuing education. Therefore, it can be argued that interactive questioning is becoming one of the most important technologies for the formation of educational continuity and special competences connected with self-skills, which are so essential in the modern world. In our presentation, we show only one of several techniques of how to work with questions, which are developed in the Laboratory of Interactive Questioning. In cooperation with other developers of interactive questioning practices, the following general characteristics presented on the slide were defined. In general, these techniques allow a person to stop the previous activity, which is the key condition to start a new one. On the slide, you can see the features of interactive questioning techniques. One of the key ideas of the interactive questioning is also the hypothesis that a group or community becomes the subject of accumulation of experience and not just a particular individual. But this statement must be tested in the course of the following experiments. Modern literacy is the ability of a person to ask questions independently to themselves and others, and the willingness to keep the questions without escaping it while getting the first available answer. In this regard, it is important to look constantly for new approaches in order to develop the practices of using questions and adapt existing methods to the specific situations. Various schools and educational organizations are currently conducting experiments on the organization of interactive questioning. To sum up, nowadays, people should be able to self-identify and redefine themselves constantly, and accordingly, the interactive questioning is a key tool for them in the context of long life learning. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact us. Here you can see our contacts. And thank you for your attention.